Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're taking a trip down memory lane, stepping back in time to the swinging 60s. It was a decade of massive change, but for many, daily life was incredibly different from what we know today. We're going to explore 20 everyday things from the 1960s that have almost completely vanished from our modern world. How many of these do you remember? Let's get started. First up, let's talk about telephones. Forget smartphones in every pocket. Back then, many households shared a party line telephone. That meant you had to listen to see if your neighbor was on the line before you could make a call. And privacy. Well, that was pretty much non-existent. Making that call involved a rotary dial phone. You'd stick your finger in the hole for each number and patiently spin it around. No speed dialing here. If you wanted to call someone long distance, you couldn't just dial their number. You had to call a phone operator, a real person who would manually connect your call through a switchboard. It was a process that required a lot of patience. Now, let's move on to home life. Imagine waking up to the clinking sound of glass bottles on your doorstep. That was the milkman, delivering fresh milk every single day. You'd wash out the empty bottles and leave them for him to collect. Another common sight, or rather sound, was the rag and bone man. He'd walk the streets with a horse and cart, shouting for people to bring out their old scrap metal, clothes, and furniture. It was the original recycling program. Heating our homes was also vastly different. Central heating wasn't widespread. Instead, most families relied on coal fires to keep warm. Nearly every backyard had a coal shed, and someone had the daily chore of fetching the coal and cleaning out the grate. And speaking of the backyard, many working-class homes still had an outdoor toilet. A trip to the loo on a cold winter's night was definitely a bracing experience. Wash day was an all-day affair. Many households used a twin-tub washing machine. One tub washed the clothes, and then you'd have to manually move the wet, heavy laundry into the second tub to spin it. Before that, clothes were often wrung out by hand, or fed through a manual mangle, a device with two rollers that squeezed the water out. It was a real workout. Let's switch over to entertainment. The television was the heart of the home, but it was a far cry from the flat screens we have now. Most families had a single, bulky black and white television set. You were lucky if you had more than 2 or 3 channels to choose from, like the BBC and ITV in the UK, and there was number 24/7 broadcasting. TV channels would sign off late at night, often playing the national anthem before the screen went to a test card. This meant families actually gathered together at specific times to watch their favorite shows. It was a shared experience. Because you had to pay for a TV license, you might even get a visit from a television license inspector who would come to your door to make sure you had paid up. And how did you know what was on? You'd check the daily paper TV listings. No on-screen guides back then. Life on the streets was different too. You'd often see street vendors selling fresh fruit and vegetables from a horse-drawn cart or a small stall. Your local corner shop was the Amazon of its day. The shopkeeper knew every customer by name and would often let families buy groceries on credit, keeping a running tab in a little notebook. You'd pay it off at the end of the week. And when you paid, it was always with cash. Credit cards and payment machines were things of the future. School days in the 60s had their own unique character. Forget whiteboards and smudboards. Classrooms were dominated by blackboards, complete with the screeching sound of chalk and clouds of chalk dust. Desks were often made of heavy wood, and many still had a little hole in the corner for an inkwell. Students learned to write with fountain pens, which could be a messy business, rather than the ballpoint pens we use today. School dinners were served on sectioned metal trays, and every child would get a small bottle of milk delivered to the classroom each day. Keeping kids safe on their way to school often fell to crossing guards, or lollipop ladies and men, who would stop traffic with their big signs. As traffic lights weren't as common near schools, it was also completely normal for young children to walk to school by themselves or with friends. When it came to lunchtime, kids carried their sandwiches and snacks in sturdy metal lunchboxes, often decorated with popular cartoon characters. These usually came with a matching thermos flask to keep your drink warm or cool. Communication was a much slower, more deliberate process. The main way to keep in touch with friends and family who lived far away was by writing handwritten letters. People put a lot of thought and effort into them, and the postal service was incredibly efficient. In many areas, the postman would deliver mail multiple times a day, sometimes in the morning and again in the afternoon. Capturing memories was a different game entirely. You used a film camera, and each roll of film had a limited number of exposures, maybe 24 or 36. You had to be selective about what you photographed. After you finished a roll, you'd take it to a shop to be developed. Then you had to wait for days, or even weeks, to finally see your pictures. There was no instant gratification. For moving pictures, families filmed home movies on Super 8 reels. You'd set up a projector and a screen to watch them back, with the worried sound of the machine in the background. When it came to music, vinyl records were king. Families would gather around the record player, or radiogram, to listen to the latest hits. The radio was also a central piece of family entertainment, with popular comedies, dramas, and music shows that everyone would tune in to listen to together. The mindset towards our possessions was also different. If an appliance like a toaster or a radio broke, you didn't just throw it away and buy a new one. You'd take it to a repair shop, or fix it yourself. Things were built to last. The same went for clothing. Many people had clothes that were tailored or handmade, designed to last for decades, not just a single season. This make do and mend culture meant people were much less wasteful. Finally, the whole pace of life was different. Because there were no giant supermarkets for a big weekly shop, people, usually housewives, would shop daily for fresh ingredients. Your neighbors were a big part of your social life, and it was common for them to just pop over for a cup of tea unannounced. There was a stronger sense of community. All of this contributed to what many remember as a slower, quieter, and perhaps more connected way of life. So there you have it, 20 things from the 1960s that have all but disappeared. It's amazing to think how much our daily lives have been transformed by technology and social change in just a few decades. Which of these did you remember? Or which ones surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories and memories. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this trip back in time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos like this. See you next time.